I'm alive? I'm alive? Bro? I'm alive? I lived? What's going on, YouTube? My name is Mr. Crippled, and today I'm going to be bringing you my Baron guide. Now, before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to keep up with any future content, I will be leaving a link to my Twitch and my Discord in the description below. Now, Baron is a very powerful utility god, brought it back in from Smite 1. With a couple nice little changes here and there. Definitely one of the best, if not the best, utility mage in the game. But he is a little complex to understand, especially if you're just trying to be the main healer, or if you're trying to be the secondary support, being a frontliner for your team. And that's what this video is going to be for. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, Baron has a passive known as Hysteria. Basically, whenever you hit the enemy god with any abilities, your abilities will get bonus effects depending on the count of Hysteria on the enemy god. You also do get your own version of a potion that your entire team can purchase. Something that was changed back from Smite 1 was that it wasn't really useful in the first game. It barely functioned as a multi-pot, which gave you mana and HP. But once late game came around, there was really no point to have it. Now, they gave it a secondary function. It still doesn't heal much. However, it is a throwable now, where it does magical damage on impact and it applies Hysteria. And your entire team can purchase this item. So your solo laner can get a little bit of extra damage in the form of magical damage. Your team can help you stack Hysteria. That way your abilities will hit even harder when those team fights come along. If your abilities are on cooldown, if you want to squeeze out just a tad bit more damage, you could throw out this item out. And overall, it's pretty useful. So now I want to go ahead and go over Baron's 1. This is his main source of DPS. He shoots out 2 lasers, each of which can interlap with each other. If you manage to hit an enemy god or enemy minion within the cross point of that X, they will take extra damage. This ability does also apply a strength, intelligence, and attack speed reduction on the enemy god once they have max Hysteria. And the cool thing about this ability is that if it puts them over the threshold of being above 30 Hysteria, it'll automatically apply this debuff, which is very nice. I also want to mention that this will complement his passive with Hysteria that makes him take less damage, since this ability will also lower their strength and intelligence once they're over 30 Hysteria. Up next, we have Baron Samedi's 2 Consigned Spirits. Now, this ability saw a lot of changes in Smite 2. Basically, it's just a giant AoE that hits the ground. If it hits an enemy god, it heals. This ability does heal more. The higher you level this ability, it heals you for 5% of your missing health plus a flat 150 health. And then on top of that, it also scales with your cooldown rate. So if your cooldown rate is extremely high, your allies and yourself are going to get a crap ton of healing and being able to stay in the middle of the fight. So this is going to be another good spammable for team fights. And even when they build anti-heal against you, the healing you get from this is pretty huge. I've seen it heal tanks from basically 1 HP all the way up to a quarter or even half their maximum health. And on top of that, whenever you have 30 stacks of Hysteria on an enemy god, this also applies a speed buff and slow immunity. Up next, I want to talk about Baron's 3. Now, bear with me because there is a lot to cover with this ability as well. Smite 1 to Smite 2, it's basically still the same. It is a skill shot line attack that on the first enemy god hit, it slows them into a root, so the root does not automatically apply. It's going to apply after the slow. The new thing about this ability is that once they are at max Hysteria, it does apply a Mesmerize to enemy gods that are near the first enemy god that's hit, which is something that's completely new. So now this ability has 3 forms of CC, which is insane. The other new thing about this ability is that now it does do damage to enemy minions, so you can use this to not necessarily clear, but just to get a little bit of extra damage on the minions and get a pretty decent poke at the enemy god. Finally, I want to talk about Baron's ultimate. This ultimate really isn't used for DPS. What it's mainly used for is for its utility. It does do a little bit of damage, and the person caught at the very end of it does take a pretty decent chunk of damage. But what you want to use this for is the pull and the stun. Um, Once they're actually above 30 hysteria, the pull itself basically pulls harder. So even if they beads too early, they're gonna be pulled back into the ultimate anyway and basically die from it. Um you are sitting duck in this though. You do gain a little bit of physical and magical protections and I believe a slight health shield, but it's not really that much to be honest with you. Um, if you're at least if you're building full DPS, if you're building as a solo laner or as a support, then it doesn't really matter. The ult's amazing for pulling beads, and it's on a fairly low cooldown at 70 seconds at without CDR. So building like World Stone and then Chronos Pen on this character, you're gonna be ulting basically every 20 seconds. Now I want to talk about Baron's leveling path. Now, typically speaking, at level 1, you're gonna get your 1 first. This is the best form of DPS that you're gonna have, and it's on a shorter cooldown than the 2, being at 9 seconds comparatively to like what is it, like 10 12 seconds, at least at level 1. Level 2, you're probably gonna get your 2 next, just for a good poke and the heal, and then finally you're gonna get your 3. Now from here, what you level next is completely up to you. Personally, I level the 1 just for the clear and for the poke. But if you're not confident that you're going to be able to hit the wave and the enemy god at the same time, leveling the 2 is definitely a really good choice. Since it is a way bigger area of effect, it does do pretty huge damage and it heals. So there's a lot of utility with the 2, but the 1 is way better as far as clear and for poking. After that, just put points into your ultimate as they come along. So at level 5, level 9, level 12, level 15, and then like level 20, I believe. You're going to be leveling either the 1 or the 2 first, and then the second ability you're going to get to max rank is going to be the 1 or the 2, depending on which one you put in. The 3 is going to be the absolute last ability you level. The DPS you get off of it is nice, but it doesn't really affect the mez or how long it roots or how long the mez is. And the tick damage is kind of negligible in the grand scheme of things. So that's definitely going to be something that you're going to level last. And then, like I said before, put points to your ultimate as you're leveling. Or when you can. Finally, I want to talk about Baron's builds. Now, the first one I'm going to do is his mage build. And the second one I'm going to do is his solo lane. And then I'll give a couple items for support. Support is kind of finicky with their builds. There are some universal ones, but support items really do vary on depending on the matchups. But the mage build is going to be pretty standard. Usually, I would recommend going into Conduit Gem first, just for the big burst of damage. But his abilities are on a fairly long cooldown at level 1, so having Sands of Time might be better for him. And since he's more of a spammable mage anyway, Sands of Time is probably going to be better in the long run. So this is going to be your go-to. Up next, you're going to want to build either into Book of Thoth or into Chronos Pendant. If you want the big burst of damage and to have some kind of damage later on, go into Book of Thoth. If you just want to be a utility mage and you want to just do damage as your secondary and you just want to make sure your team stays alive and just kind of do some damage, Chronos Pendant is going to be the better starter. But you really wouldn't build both of these. Simply because if you're going to go Chronos Pendant first, you can get a lot more utility items and then supplement the fact that you don't have Book of Thoth with like Rada Tahuti. But if you're going to go Book of Thoth, you're going to get items that not only give you cooldowns, but also give you mana. And the amount of cards that you're going to need with Book of Thoth is just not going to be the same with what you need for Chronos Pendant. So if you're going to go Book of Thoth, the next card you want to go into is probably going to be either Totem of Death or Spear of Desolation. Only reason why I don't recommend going Chronos Pendant second after Book of Thoth here is because you're going to need the pen. Baron's damage is nice and it is high, but because you're gonna want to build as much CDR as possible, not a lot of CDR items are going to give you pen. So these 2 items, Book of Thoth is going to be a must-have. Soul Reaver is also going to be a must-have in the build. Gives mana, does health scaling, the whole shebang. And then you can go Gem of Focus for the extra movement speed since Baron does lack survivability. I also still think Cosmic Horror, even though they did nerf this card, I still think Cosmic Horror is a really good item to have, simply because you gain more CDR just for having intelligence, and you gain more power with Book of Thoughts just because it has mana, and plus it gives 100 intelligence, so it's a very hard hitting card. Albeit the passive for it, building towards it, will take a little bit of time. Um, and then I do also recommend building either Obsidian Shard or Divine Ruin in certain matchups. Mostly Divine, now that Yamoja and Anubis got some healing buffs, or now Yamoja's in the game, and now Baron's in the game, so healing's going to be really prominent. Divine Ruin is going to be something, basically a staple item on a lot of these gods now. And if we go back, if you want to build him for solo lane, I do still think Sands of Time is a really good starting point for him. However, I also think Warriors Axe is going to be a little bit better, since you do want him a little bit tankier and surviving. That way you can be a way better frontliner, but you will be sacrificing a little bit of CER at Warriors Axe. As far as a starter, I still do recommend building Chronos Pendant first if you just want the damage to help yourself clear and get a lot of CDR out the way early. I do recommend building that item, but if you're comfortable and you don't feel like you're gonna need a lot of at least power early, I would recommend building Breastplate of Valor, or even Shield of the Phoenix. That way you gain more healing for hitting your abilities, or you gain tankiness and CDR for the first item. After that, I would recommend getting Gladiator Shield. They did change this now that it gives physical protections, but it gives 20 cooldown rate as well. Plus, this would make you deal bonus damage based off of your overall protections. And since you're going to be building out of a solo lane, you're going to be the frontliner. This is definitely going to be a game changer for your damage. I would also recommend building Shifter's Shield. Shifter's Shield is just a loaded card. You don't necessarily need to build this, but this is highly recommended. Other items, Spectral is really nice. If you're trying to go for magical protections, Genji's is also there. That way you get more cooldowns for taking magical damage. Oni Hunter's Garber is really nice. I would also recommend building Talisman of Purification. That way you can just cleanse CC off of yourself. Even though you're going to be a frontliner, a lot of your utility is just being annoying and being in the front. And if you are getting CC locked the entire time, you're not going to be useful. So Talisman of Purification is probably going to be a really good go-to on the solo lane aspect. Ruinous Ankh could be a replacement for Divine Ruin if you don't want to get that. If you don't want to get Divine Ruin for just a secondary damage item, that way you just have anti-heal just surrounding you. I'd also recommend building Stone of Binding. Since you do have a lot of CC, this is going to make your abilities hit extremely hard. And then if you pair that again with Gladiator Shield and all the protections that you're going to have, you're going to be hitting extremely hard. Last but not least, obviously, Triton's Conch. This card is still busted. I'm very surprised that it even made it through the last surprise patch. Simply for the fact that it gives intelligence and strength just for being in the game. And you get a whopping 300 health off of it. Plus, you gain more strength and intelligence the longer the game goes on. Voidstone is also a really good secondary damaging item. That's a hybrid item, just reducing the magical protections of anybody that's near you. But since you're ranged, you're not really going to get a lot of value out of this. So unless you're just standing in their face 24/7, I wouldn't really recommend building this card. And that's going to be it. Thank you all for watching the video. And if you have any god requests that you want any specific videos on, don't be afraid to leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about Baron and how he feels in Smite 2. Thank you for your time, and y'all take care.